Uh-oh. Let's do a show.
And to our listening ears, all angels sing and round us rings the music of the spheres.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to Penn Sunday School, starring Penn Gillette. My name is Michael Goudeau, and along with Matt Donnelly, we are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas. Woo! This week we have our guru of grub, our super sciencey sultan of skinny, our Lord Lost leader. When we say 625 people have lost 30,149 pounds, it's our version of blowing him a kiss. It's our cult leader, Mr. Ray Cronise. Here he is preaching love, Mr. Penn Gillette.
Oh, you didn't mention her. She's here.
Julieanna's here too.
Okay, well,
I've never heard a better intro.
That was his best.
For half of our guests. I've never heard a better intro. I've never.
Let's start out with this. Now, CrayRay has been promising to write a book for 30 years.
Yeah.
He's failed every step of the way.
Right.
Juliana comes around, actually finishes
Bam,
the
it's
book,
done.
and you forget her name.
I didn't
say the name of the book and her name.
Well, that was for the we're doing another show with them. I was saving those for the next show.
Oh, okay. But tell the name of the book.
It's
Plant-Based Nutrition.
Plant-Based Nutrition, the Idiot's Guide.
Yeah.
Julianna Hever.
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 Hoover.
Like forever.
Like forever. Ever? Hever.
Hever.
Forever.
Yes.
Julianna Hever.
Julianna Hever.
Hever and
That was Penn Sunday School.
It's been 40 minutes already.
This is it. This is a great thing, you angel-headed hipsters, because a lot of people say that you guys talk too much about diet. Shut up. And then others say you don't talk enough about diet. This is very cut and dried. We're going to talk about diet for a lot of this. We will try to talk about it in our usual style, but we're going to talk a lot about diet. So this is the show. If you want to know about CrayRay and everything I talked about in my book Presto, here's where to find out. Because there is not a day that goes by, that someone does not come up to me after our show and say, Penn, I really want to get Ray Cronise's book. I want CrayRay's book. They ask every single night because they say, your book is funny, talks a lot about it, really inspiring, blah, 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 but we want to get down to the real facts. When's he going to publish that book? So this is not your major opus. Right?
Yep.
Because you'll never be done with your major opus.
I hope I will.
Yeah, of course. But we all know you're kidding yourself.
Yes.
And while kidding yourself, you're not kidding us.
Exactly.
But there is a book, a wonderful book, 1,000 pages, bestseller, every piece of information, including the unified field theory of all physics, that's going to come out by you. But in the meantime, you have someone sitting next to you who actually did the work and got the book out.
Exactly.
And what's your background, Julianna?
I'm a registered dietitian and personal trainer.
Like nothing, right?
Yeah. No, I have. Yeah.
Those are the most jive things you could possibly be.
Right.
That's okay. But and how did you get to the plant?
I had a minor in communications.
Okay, you beat him.
Great. Okay, moving on.
But and how did you get to plant-based?
That's a good story. I mean, it's a long story, but I'll summarize it from two different paths. So the first path was when I was a teenager, I learned about what happens on factory farming, and I came from it from a more animal rights perspective.
A little girl.
I was young, yeah, and I didn't know what that meant. So I was eating, anything that didn't have animals in it. Like, I don't know, the side dishes, which is kind of funny, but
grilled cheeses.
I mean, rice cakes and granola bars and junk. So of course, any healthy parent would be worried about their daughter.
But you're an animal ethicist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was. I am.
Like a teenager.
It started with the animals for me, and then it evolved in a lot of ways. But I also on the same timing, I was also doing acting because I'm from LA, and so
they won't even let you get a bus pass without a headshot over there.
Exactly.
You gotta.
Yeah, and as a dancer, as an actress, everyone was telling me I needed to lose weight because you have to be, extra super.
So were you wicked fat in high school?
I was never fat.
Never wicked fat.
No.
Never even fat. You wouldn't even take the word wicked. We can take out. You were never fat.
Well, by Hollywood standards, I wasn't thin. I guess you could say, but
by Hollywood standards, I'm a sumo wrestler.
So I tried all the different
communication.
And so I was always interested in food and diet and exercise, and I became a personal trainer. And out of that, when people started to ask me about nutrition, I decided I want to go back to grad school and find out what I was talking about before I started answering. Mm-hmm. And then I fell in love with teaching nutrition.
First of all, that makes you not a personal trainer when you want to find out what you're talking about before you answer questions. you've now violated the first rule of the personal trainer, which is the first thing they tell you is talk out your ass.
Right.
The only smart thing a personal trainer ever said to me was, if you want to lose a lot of weight, first gain a lot of weight. That was
my
the
gosh.
only, which is true.
It's true.
Right? It's the only way. You couldn't lose 100 pounds.
You could lose 100 pounds.
You
You could lose
couldn't.
5 pounds and gain it back, and then lose 10 pounds.
No, but
and
you
gain it
couldn't lose 100 pounds.
No.
I had to be up, the super fat fuck
Yeah.
to lose over 100 pounds. So go on. You got your bus pass, your personal trainer. You've gone back to school.
Yeah, and I was
Well, the
working
other
as-
personal trainers are like, "What are you doing?
Yeah,
You're
stop her.
ruining it for the rest of
Don't
us."
find out
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Make shit up.
It was interesting. It was,
Tell them to have a steak.
yeah. Well, I wasn't plant-based at the time. I was doing the whole egg whites, 18 egg whites a day, and veggies.
Oh,
and
my gosh,
I
yeah,
went
yeah.
through all of that. Yeah, but then everything
And
converged after
eat a
that.
meal every half
2
hour.
hours.
Yeah, because you're gonna starve
You gotta
between.
keep your metabolism going.
Yeah, keep your metabolism.
Exactly. No, I was under all of those same things. But then everything converged after graduate school when I started noticing things like, how my information was sponsored by the Dairy Council in small print, or the annual conference for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics was all about dairy and beef and Splenda and, Kellogg's, and just the food industry ran what the information that we were getting was.
Kellogg's was originally an anti-masturbation guy.
Yeah.
Temperance movement.
Yeah, it's all that.
But
Yeah.
that was also the plant-based movement too.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But
or the vegetarian
I'm
movement.
holding that against him.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, I just saw all of the politics and all of the nonsense behind the regulations that everyone got, like what we're
The
told
pyramid.
to eat,
Yeah.
the pyramid, all of that. And so all of that came to fruition. I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second, I won't be iron deficient without eating animals. And I could actually look into the science and get the answers to all these questions. And that's when everything kind of came together. And then I switched to a plant-based diet. It's been about 12 and a half years. And when I did, I had massive health transformation. So I didn't lose 100 pounds, but I got rid of lifelong massive sinus infections and acne and horrible GI problems. And I just all of a sudden felt great. And then my clients, instead of losing a couple pounds or not going up in their medication dose, all of a sudden they were getting off of their medications. All of a sudden they were losing tremendous amounts of weight. Their energy was better in the gym, and stuff just completely transformed. And that was it for me. So I've been teaching, speaking all over the world, and writing since it's been about 12 years.
And now that's your job.
It's my love. It's my passion. But what's so interesting, and I'm going to bring in CrayRay here because, I was in the industry for 23 years, and I thought I knew, what I was doing. I had a good handle on things, and then I met Ray last year, and interestingly, he just blew my mind. Obviously, like he blows everyone's mind, and he started telling me these things, and I was like, wait, that's not what I learned in grad school. Wait, but that makes so much sense. Wait, I don't understand. And then I tried what he said, and I'd been the same weight my entire life except for my 2 pregnancies, and I started implementing. I did the first 2 weeks.
She stopped exercising for a while.
Yeah, I used to work out. Yeah, whoa, I used to work out 2 hours a day. Yeah, I stopped it was 18 days. I lost 12 pounds, kept it off, and that blew my mind because I'd never been able to change my weight. So anyway, we've our messages have completely synergized, and it's really incredible. It's just taken off in a completely different direction, and that's why I was really excited to add him onto this book. And we wrote a paper together, and
Yeah, well, we have 625 people self-reported who, based on something, have lost 30,000, 140,000
It's just amazing.
pounds. And we have people every single night. There's not been a night in a year, 2 years, where someone hasn't told me they've lost at least 30 pounds. And most nights it's someone over 100.
Wow.
And they always pull out their phone and show a picture of the two of us together, which is really great.
Oh, that's
They get a picture after our show, and they've got,
It's both your before and after pictures.
Yeah. Both are before and after, and it's really, really great, and people starting all the time and losing that weight. And I had personally a really interesting thing the other night, which I really loved. Someone got to me. We were playing Thackerville, which is actually a place in Oklahoma. It's the Windstar Casino.
Windstar.
And a guy came up to me who was looking really trim and fit, and flashed a picture of him like 130 pounds heavier than he was, and looking miserable, and said to me, you didn't inspire me really very much at all. Because when you say you're going to do something, I just say, that's Penn. He's a nut. He'll do anything. Who cares? He said, who inspired me was Godot and Matt. Because I say, Godot and Matt, they're not going to do crazy stuff. They don't have the stories you have. They aren't out of control. So the fact they could do it inspired me. And I went, that's probably true.
That's funny.
Because Penn eating potatoes for 2 weeks, who cares?
Yeah.
Penn drops his dick in a blow dryer.
Yeah.
He does things other people don't do. So we won't worry about him.
Which I tried as well. Dropped my dick in a blow dryer. I lost no weight. None. And my blood pressure went right up.
And I've been practicing it, but the dryer's not plugged in. So I'm working up to it.
Godot's always smarter than me.
Just coming out.
And but it's interesting. You talked about sinus stuff, right? And those problems. One thing coincidental with me losing the weight is my voice and sinuses getting tremendously worse.
Worse.
Really terrible. And I don't think it's cause and effect. But I have a whole team of doctors. I mean, I had a voice for years that was really, really strong. And for the first time ever, last Thursday night, I canceled my first voiceover session of my life. I just didn't have a voice, which is really funny because your buddy, John Henney,
Yeah.
who is a great voice teacher, and I checked on him, really, really great. He worked with me one day. Very next day, my voice was useless.
Oh, really?
And I wrote to him and said, totally coincidental, nothing to do with you, but boy, it's a little funny. But I was doing this thing. I had gotten myself up, and we'll talk about this because this we have to talk about a lot. I was whatever the weight I was when I was highest, which nobody knows anymore because 1, I'm lying about it. 2, it wasn't measured at that point. 3, I tell the story over and over again to myself. But we do know we have on a scale, no doubt about it, I was 320.
Yes.
We also know without a doubt.
308 because at 304 because you wouldn't give me credit for 308.
Right, exactly.
the asshole you
but
are.
that's where we started. But we have also good doctor measurements
Right.
that go over 320.
Right.
And we know I was heavier than that.
Right.
So I usually go 330, 340 is where I was. I probably was heavier than that at my very, very heaviest one particular day, but, somewhere around there. And I got down one day with CrayRay, down to like 225.
225.
And then I scooted up to an average of about 234.
That's right.
And then, over the past 6 months, I have once hit 251,
Right.
which scared me to death. So I decided when Piff hit the potatoes, and I just said, Piff, you're my buddy. In solidarity, I'll hit the potatoes too. So on a Thursday, I went to all potatoes, except I was also doing brown rice and some beans.
Right.
Because you threw that in. Makes no difference. I'm not trying to change everything there. So, and I lose about a pound a day. About a pound a day, and I'm down 7 pounds in a week, which is about a pound a day.
That's about a pound a day.
7.2 pounds.
Hold a moment while I check out the math. That was 7 pounds, was it?
7 pounds. 7.2 pounds.
7.2
Divided by
pounds
seven.
divided by
Over 7 days.
About a pound a day.
Yeah, about that. And Thursday, and meanwhile, I'm having tremendous voice problems and coughs, which are all settled into Vegas, which gets worse. The longer you live here, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Which is really more proof of there being no God.
And conditionally, Vegas has been experiencing less and less drastic winters. So we're breaking all of our records for pollen and all that stuff that's happening here.
And it's just wicked terrible. So I get to Texas, where I'm supposed to be doing this VO for our VR project. So I'm supposed to do like an hour and a half of VO. An hour and a half of VO is nothing for me. Voice is really strong. I get there and I'm going, boy, my voice is terrible. It's got a lot of dropouts. It's really, really awful. And I have the next morning, I am doing Glenn Beck, I'm doing interviews with him and stuff. And on top of that, I've slept plenty, and yet I'm exhausted, which I'm never exhausted. So I have no energy at all, and no voice. And I go into the voiceover session, and I go into the booth, and they come out to me. It's really embarrassing. They go, I'm sure you have the willpower to get through this, but it'll all be unusable. You sound terrible. You don't even sound like a bad impersonation of Penn. It's unusable. So I say I've got no energy.
Which is usually your go back, right?
And we go back to the hotel, and Glenn says, I'm canceling Glenn Beck tomorrow because you have a show tomorrow night you've got to do, and it'll only give you 2 hours of sleep because you got to be up at 6, So give you a night of sleep. And in the middle of the night, I'm feeling really, really weak, and my voice is gone, and I've been on potatoes for a while, and I've lost 7 pounds, and I go, you know what'll help me now? Mini bar. So I have a Kit Kat,
Oh no.
peanut M&Ms,
Comfort food.
potato chips, nuts, and I'm still looking for other stuff.
That's already
what
$1,000
time
you've
is this?
spent.
$1,000.
I thought you were going to say 1,000
What time?
calories.
And what time is
$1,000.
this?
Midnight, 2 a.m. Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
These are
yeah.
time. And by the way, I feel great. I get a lot of energy back.
Sugar high.
Get up the next morning. Well, there's no such thing as a sugar high.
What?
There've been a lot of studies that have said there's no such thing as a sugar high. When they had with children getting more jacked up because of that, no evidence for that at all. They did the placebo test and everything. This was a few years ago. Sugar high is complete hype.
I haven't studied sugar
Yeah,
high.
check it out. There just really isn't anything for it. There's no such thing as a sugar high.
But there's a chocolate high, right?
Yes, of course. There's a chocolate high because you get speed in it.
But it's a bigger dopamine hit
but
than
just
if you're
sugar.
eating like a brown rice.
I don't think it's supposed to be. I think they did really big double-blind placebo studies and did not get it.
What about
Compared to what?
Oh, well, I don't know what they were using, but yeah.
Compared to what is the question I want to see.
Not sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. I
will.
think it may be complete hype.
All I know is when I give my child a piece of candy.
That's what everybody says,
Yeah.
but that's been checked.
That's because your kid is happy.
But your kid's
Yeah,
happy, right? The
right.
mood shift, right?
But
Because we've talked about this. This has always been your thing.
Sugar
I mean,
is
from the
love.
beginning. We did those. And speaking numbers, I don't know if you have them, but we did those averages. One. Remember this summer sometime we did real averages, and they were actually really good. You were like 236 average over a pretty long period of time. And so basically, when we
Sorry.
okay.
he needs to have the.
Just lean into it.
All right. So basically, when we when we talked about every time, first, what weight would you go to? Mm-hmm. So, for example, John Henney just hit 215 today, and he didn't know where he was going to go. He knows where that little blue zone is on the Nokia scale, right? And he's kind of in the blue, so he, in the blue zone. This idea of where that bottom weight is, it's an arbitrary number, and you know me, I always want people to go a little bit further so they have a little buffer.
Well, I'm trying to hit 93.
Yeah, not that
final
far.
goal,
A
yeah.
little
93
farther. A little farther. So anyway, the point of this was
On your
to say
vision
that
board, you have a picture of Kate Moss, right?
Half of Kate Moss.
That's right.
every
This is
time
the
you
outfit
gain,
I want to fit
it
into.
is this night eating thing. Every time you've gained.
Every-
this
oh, it's
night
on
eating.
nothing but night.
And a lot of times it's all those nuts that you have sitting on your countertop.
Yeah.
You just go raid the nuts, and then you text me the next day
It's all nuts and fruit.
and tell me that.
Nuts and fruit and peanut butter, which is nuts.
Yeah, well, peanut butter isn't in my house,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I don't have
that's
that
the
problem.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, and you do when you do a really low cal diet for a while, you do have days you have low energy. And getting some more food in there does it.
Right,
But I
because
do
that's
not
the
think
sleep
there's
part of it, and that's why I'm tying this back to the circadian rhythm. Your life is shifted from a circadian clock because you're not it's not like you're a late sleeper that you're going to get up late. You're go, and you have that drive to say, I'm going to power through this situation no matter whatever needs to be done. That's who you've always been. So, you get going, and about the time your circadian clock is winding down, melatonin should be going up, cortisol should be coming down. You're getting hit with these bright lights on stage. Your mind's on fire trying to deal with all the stuff that you're doing with the show, and then afterwards you're standing there doing that, and then you drive home, and I know your routine is normally around the kitchen and watching TV or watching a movie or something. So now you're well into your circadian night, and what we've learned about shift studies with the circadian clock is that basically the conclusion is don't work at night.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, people don't really ever get adjusted that well.
Never.
And you feel this real time with these, when.
And it is amazing. It is amazing. I've always just considered myself, I'm a night person, I'm happy being up all night. I've always considered that. Of course, I've worked in show business my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have taken 14 years ago, I took 5 days off, which is the longest I've ever taken off in my life. 5 days off 14 years ago. And within 2 days, I was going to sleep an
9,
hour
10.
after sundown,
9, 10.
getting up at dawn.
Yeah.
Instantly changed right back. Do nothing whatsoever.
We
there was
have the
no
will to
habit, no
override
nothing. And I'm going to the Grand Canyon, taking 2 days off with my family when I get back from London. And we're taking 2 days off, and I'm going to go to the Grand Canyon. And I will guarantee you that it'll take 24 hours before all my night stuff just shifts back, and I get up at dawn and go to bed at sunset. I do that instantly. So all the stuff I had told myself for years about being a night person was just a lie.
Yeah.
It's just like food. It's habit. So you were able to overcome that circadian clock, and you can, but you do so at the peril of health. I mean, there are certain health ticks that you take, and for me, the one thing, just observing, I don't know that we could say this is some kind of hardcore science. I'd say this is more just exploratory. But the thing that I've really wanted to do is find a cutoff period, because when I feel like you were doing most successful is when you were not eating after the show.
Oh yeah, well also
because it was your performance art part. You had that engaged, but you can't cognitively inhibit a biological urge forever. Eventually, the urge wins, right? So you were able to do that for this period really well because you love routines, you love
routines,
love systems. But for some reason, this is one that as soon as you start eating after the show, it's all over.
It's all over. And the interesting thing is, as soon as I go to just potatoes, or potatoes, rice, and beans, whatever you want to call that, whenever I go to that, the after the show eating goes away. First 2 nights, I have a potato after the show. Last night, nothing after the show. Really simple.
Yeah, because this creates this creates the boredom, and you're not going to get what you're really wanting. This is creating a little boredom. I mean, when you go for nuts and seeds, you really enjoy that.
I love it.
It really is, and I'm sure it does light up.
But right now, I could eat a jar of peanut butter and be thrilled.
Right. Well, I could always eat a jar of peanut butter and be thrilled.
As a matter of fact,
I love peanut butter.
Once
There's
we
no
finish,
peanut butter in your house because you ate it all.
That's right.
It's not
All
because
right.
there's no.
It's because
But
my
I
spoon
will-
went in it one more time. I said the next time my spoon is crunchy. Next time my spoon goes in, it's no more. And so I managed for a while because I was doing some Tide to cooking and I was using it again. I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and then sure enough, that night came along. I'll just have one spoon. Right.
well, you never can have one spoon.
I understand.
And by the way, a spoonful of peanut butter is defined as 1/4 a jar. The amount of spoon I can get on there, I mean, we're really talking.
They never say what type of spoon you use.
Oh, no. It is a large soup spoon.
Serving spoon?
Yeah. And the amount of peanut butter on there is a good solid B34 cup.
Yeah.
That's the amount of peanut butter that's on
If
there.
you don't feel like you're going to choke the first time you open your mouth when it goes in, you didn't put enough in.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
What type of peanut butter sculpture can this spoon maintain as I lift it out of the jar?
And when you have a brand, I mean, this is a great thing about Bruno Mars, smooth like a jar of Skippy.
Yeah.
When you tip your whole spoon in and you pull out this, this medium-sized breast volume of peanut butter, and one side of it is the complete smooth top, and the other side is fractal. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. Most beautiful thing in the world.
That's actually, I only eat peanut butter to appreciate its fractal nature.
Yeah. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go.
So I really think this night thing. I mean, because if you think about what you did, even on the road, you start getting into that stuff, and once you start, it's hard to stop.
Yep.
I think I might have told you guys about the peanut butter bastards, or Reese's peanut butter bastards, as I call them. But in the middle of my fast, and I was doing a specific diet for 2 weeks, and then another diet for 2 weeks, and then the water fast. And right in the middle there was Halloween. This was in 2014. I had a glucose monitor implant. I'd spent over $15,000 on blood tests, DEXA
So you know
scans.
if you had a sugar rush.
I don't know. I don't know if I had a sugar rush, but anyway. So I basically.
You're gonna have to accept the fact that you'd be wrong on this.
I'm always open to being wrong, but I want to see
actually
It's
it.
gonna
Gonna
be
be
wicked hard for you, but you're gonna accept it.
No, I'm okay with being wrong. I want to know the facts.
Not about this. You're not okay with it. You're okay with being wrong.
Gotta
about
draw the
other
line
things.
somewhere. Yeah.
Oh no, that was Matt Damon in that movie. You're fine with that. But this is going to your core, baby.
Poison her
Sugar rush? No.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
went
I
from-
gotta see this data.
Let it go. Let it go.
Okay.
Let it go.
So I'm back to, at this point, I go from my blood glucose response is completely out of control. Within 3.5 weeks, I have perfect glucose control. And it's Halloween, and I got candy for the kids. And so they're doing this, and I'm packing to go across country to bring my lab across country. This is when the return trip is when we got together, and I'm packing everything together, and I'm thinking, look at my glucose, it's fine. I bet my diabetes is gone. I'll bet if I eat one of these peanut butter cups that I won't have a response. I won't have a response. And I said, so I opened up. I thought I'm going to do this, and my brain, in my brain. I'm spending all this money on this test. I have perfect results. My data's absolutely gorgeous. And my brain is saying, peanut butter cup, peanut butter cup, peanut butter cup, peanut butter cup, right? And so I eat the first one, and sure enough, normally my blood glucose would go up to like 200 and something, and it was perfect.
That's not
and it was
high.
perfect. It was perfect because of the diet that had preceded this. But then this is when
It's a two-pack.
the monster. Then I'm like, well, I wonder how much it would take for it to go up. So now I had an excuse to have another one. So by the end of the night, I'd eaten 5 or 6 of them, and then I got the red bump. I woke.
Five or
By 5 or 6, he means 8.
No, well maybe. Well maybe. But I went to. It didn't go up. I went to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I had this really giant curve right in the middle of my perfect data. So it's like, damn. I mean, I had gotten that point, but I did exactly the same thing. It was 2 in the morning. You can look on my glucose monitor. It was 2 in the morning. I was tired. I'd been packing. I needed to go. I started with a real good reason, and then I sold myself because we talk ourselves into this all the time.
This is sorry for yourself. I deserve this. I've been working hard.
It wasn't really that. I was very delusional that this was good science. For me, it really was.
For
I was very
Godot,
delusional.
he needs a victim to talk himself into eating. For you, it needs to be like for science.
I needed a data point.
Like, Ray, as a pioneer, we need you to eat chocolate peanut butter stat.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Your glucose monitor needs you.
Captain
Yes.
Reese's, run it here.
Ready to go. But you do this, and this is what I think this is the habit. And so the question then becomes, is there something to this? Is there something to the fact that you have this, career they're not going to start, doing your show early? And does it mean that you're going to have to figure out some way to not cross that line at night?
I've wondered how successful an act would have to be to control their showtime.
Yeah.
I have wondered if Jay-Z
Yeah.
said, I'm playing Madison Square Garden, and my shows are going to be 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. every one of these days, what level you have to be at where you can actually control that.
Right.
How much in advance do we have to be sold out before we can say, Penn and Teller at the Rio Theater at 3 p.m. every day? And and I don't think there's a level. I don't know if the Stones, I guess Springsteen on Broadway,
Yeah.
when you're sold out 2 months in advance.
And he's probably doing 2 matinees anyway, right?
Yeah, and everything if you could do afternoon shows. But yes, I'm stuck with this, and I'll tell you.
I experimented with peanut butter cups. Why don't you change your show date and see how it goes? Just tell them CrayRay said to.
Yeah,
That'll make me a hit.
Yeah.
Glenn will kill me.
Tell everyone at the Rio about the peanut butter cups and get back to me.
And I'm going to go to. I'm going to England for 3 days, and going to England for 3 days is miserable.
You've
right?
already been to England.
You've already been, yeah.
I know that. I know. We're adults here. We know this is recorded before. We're recording this on December 10th, and it's being played on December 31st.
Yes.
Okay. So so I'm going to go.
Let me check the math on that.
I'm going to go. I'm going to do Grand Tour, and so I'm going to go to drive a car. on a Wednesday. So I'm flying over Monday, which really means Tuesday because time difference, and I'm flying back Thursday. And I am not going to go on a British Airways flight and not eat because that's part of your entertainment when you're going for a 12-hour flight. Just all bets are. I don't eat on airplanes domestically. Internationally, you got to. And I've also discovered, this is amazing, this is the part that's mind-blowing to me, is that all of these battles we're talking about losing with peanut butter and so on, it's really interesting that we're losing this battle with peanut butter because we're not losing this battle with cheese. We're not losing this battle with hamburgers. We're not losing this battle with fried chicken.
Right.
It is astonishing. It is astonishing to me that a hamburger is still attractive to me, but not intensely attractive. Chicken, disgusting. All seafood, disgusting. Cheese, still pretty attractive. Bread and butter, over the top attractive. The greatest thing in the world is bread and butter, which, by the way, was just that was a sideline before.
Right.
So you have to look in this battle for my nutrition that where the battle line has changed.
Right.
I mean, the battle line has changed from maybe I shouldn't have 2 Big Macs, right, to maybe I shouldn't eat a lot of raw, plain, unsalted nuts at night.
Right.
That's a long way to move that bar.
Right.
It's a huge change. And I forget that entirely. And when I have my feast days, which I've decided psychologically for me that rare and appropriate was a fine term. Retro eating, which is what Jason Garfield uses, a fine term. But my term is just feast. Because that's what it really is, right? When I think about a feast, first of all, Thanksgiving, that was my last time with turkey. It was just not good.
Right. You texted me right away.
Yeah, I just didn't like it. I want gravy. You know, I want salt. I want salt, fat, and sugar. Just the meat part has just gone away. And by the way, I went completely backwards from you because. We did one of our most popular bullshit shows was PETA, the bullshit of PETA, and PETA is completely a bullshit organization, and complete jive ass and liars but I was never particularly bothered by factory farming. I knew at some level that it wasn't ideal. I didn't feel good about it. I just didn't think about it too much. Although I didn't avoid it either. I wasn't in complete denial. But I went to the CrayRay, went to plant-based, and then what?
Elephants were your line.
Yeah, elephants were the line. And raw.
Paleo elephant steaks.
Unsalted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about that.
It was elephant sushi. I then, after being plant-based for a while and all of the desire going away, then especially reading, when you read Harari's book, Sapiens and Homo Deus, which are fabulous books. And he deals with those. He deals with the factory farming issue kind of secondarily. It's just not there. And because it was being so soft-pedaled to me and so logically pedaled, what I don't like is when the factory farming is fought, when the battle is fought by teenagers of boy, they're cute and boy, they're suffering. I'm not really interested at all. When it's fought on the other side of a more strict morality position without the word cute being used at all, it works much better on me. So that's kind of drifting away. But what was amazing was, I want to take my daughter out, and she really wants me to have a feast with her and not eat carefully. And I went out to a restaurant to eat anything, and really nothing on the menu appealed to me.
Yeah.
That was meat. Now, animal-based is different because I'm still liking butter. Butter hasn't gone away at all. But I think butter would go away instantly if you just said that's olive oil. I'd be just as happy with it.
Because you didn't have a problem with that.
What about if we wrote the word "cute" on your jars of peanut butter? Would that help? Would that make it go away? Like, why don't you have some?
Peanut butter is legal in your world. You know, it's part of your rule.
Yeah.
And that's like at one point I can remember these texts that said, you know, look, isn't it crazy that the only thing I need to worry about control is something that's actually on my diet.
Yeah.
And it's all the stuff that is not on the diet doesn't actually tempt me at all.
Yeah.
I mean, because even when you say, you know, a hamburger, it's not really a craving anymore.
No.
Even me, I can get,
But French fries are still wicked good.
I love French fries.
Wicked good. That's my
Absolutely.
trigger food.
She wants French fries.
If I have one fry, it means like 3 dishes of fries.
Yeah,
like I
so
just
she-
have to know to say no. Or sometimes I feast too, you know.
Sure, you want to feast on French fries.
But you know, if you look at this, you can have really 2 parallel scales. One scale is, you know, how healthy is the meal, 0 to 10, and what's the experience? Because you can get an experience that's an 8 or a 9, and the health is a 5 or a 7 or an 8, not a 2. So the old food that we really liked, you know, with a hamburger, it's all about that motion, you know, taking the bite out of it. It's the ketchup, it's the mustard, it's the onion, it's the relish, it's, you know, the burger and the cheese doesn't necessarily have to be all of that experience. When you take that out, you still get a lot of, like my kids love hamburger rice, where we take black rice, which, you know, as we talked about, has a lot of the characteristics of ground beef.
Yep.
And you put ketchup, mustard on it, raw onions,
Sriracha.
some sriracha relish. You know, I like the Wickles relish, that spicy relish. And, you know, and you start having an experience that's an awful lot like eating a hamburger. And to me, where I think people fail, and I'm not against them trying because I understand the purpose of it, but when you start creating fake versions of stuff, then what you end up in is this whole no space. I'd rather just take the flavor combinations. This is one of the things I felt like I came away from cooking school was the flavor combinations, and get that, because that all, once you chew it up, it doesn't matter what it looked like on the plate. You know?
There's also, saying that again, I have not even yet. I think is this literally true? I'm not sure, but I don't believe I have yet tried any of the faux
Tofurkey.
foods. Yeah, I don't think I've tried any of that ever. You know, when I'm over in England, I will also go to eating vegan Indian food, which is exactly the same as eating Big Macs, right? I mean,
Almost.
nutrition.
Calorically, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Not as bad, but it's
But I will do all of that. And then December is really easy for me because my family usually goes out of town, and then I can go back to potatoes are really, really simply, really easy. What I've discovered now, which I did not believe before, was I've been doing 6 at 6, which I call up room service, and I say, deliver 6 plain baked potatoes to my dressing room at 6. And I eat 4, and I mean 4 of these baked
They're
potatoes.
big. We saw them
Oh yeah, you
last
saw
night.
them. Yeah. These are to put them in the terms we all understand. These are like triple D 34s, 38s, big potatoes, and I eat 4 of those before the show. And I don't have any problems during the show. I feel great. There's no cognitive problems, no nothing. I feel terrific. And then if I'm still hungry, I have 2 afterwards. But mostly no. Mostly those 2 are just there. Oh boy, if I panic tonight, I'll have these.
You have to get Julieanna to bring you some of her potatoes. She's got an unbelievable potato that
What are you talking about? How do you know this?
She had a bag of potatoes yesterday.
We had potatoes with her yesterday, and they were amazing.
Well,
Tell
I fell
us.
in love. Okay, I love potatoes. I never got past the potatoes. I mean, I just enjoy them, and I was trying all the different types of potatoes, and I discovered Japanese sweet potatoes from Hawaii. I ship them to my place in LA, and then I travel with them everywhere. So they go all over the world.
I had Japanese sweet
Yeah,
potatoes.
the purple ones.
And I didn't like them.
Well, these ones from Hawaii, there's this one farm. I don't know. There's probably more of them, but they're just super sweet, and not too sweet because I don't like too
and how
sweet.
do
Really
you cook
great.
them?
And I
And
used
a
to
good
bake
texture.
them, but they were really dry. So on our way here to Vegas, we boiled them for the first time. I boiled them for the first time, and it was much better. I thought
It was like eating
perfect.
fruit.
Yeah,
They were so
It was like
good.
soft
and they travel so nicely.
It's a secret.
Why don't you have them for me now?
I'm sorry. I promise I'll come back and bring.
I saw she put them aside for you, and I ate those.
Thank you. He
those
took
potatoes,
the wrap from me.
So, but we want to say now that I wrote a book called Presto that is a book by a nut. Okay, and it's very, very personal. It's just about me, and people have found it inspiring. They found it 30,000 pounds inspiring.
It's a dining adventure.
And they're able to pull the information out of it. But everybody wants, badly, a book that isn't by a nut, that actually is planning to be universal and plan to give information that's actually useful without sifting through a lot of jokes about my penis. So that book is Plant-Based Nutrition, The Idiot's Guide. And all they've got to do is check Plant-Based Nutrition, The Idiot's Guide, and it's out. Now, this is the second edition?
This is the second edition.
And what has changed in the first edition?
So yes, the first edition I wrote, but before I met Ray, BR before Ray, or BC before CrayRay, in 2011. And what was changed is that we've integrated our messaging. So we've now incorporated health span and longevity. We've incorporated oxidative priority. We've taken out all of the, I don't know, like I kind of had some gurus in there, or some like some of the initial evidence on plant-based diet, like, when Dean Ornish reversed cardiovascular disease for the first time. So we took all of that out because now it's just, the literature is getting bigger and bigger. The database is just growing. And so we're just taking, here's how it is, this is how to do it. We've talked across the lifespan. We talked to all the different populations. We have new recipes. It's a completely revised book.
Now, I haven't read the book yet, even though I wrote the foreword. But
Did you read the foreword that you wrote?
no.
Okay.
All these things, the New York Times, and I really, really do not believe in moderation at all. I do not believe in moderation. But I know that they do these things like Meatless Monday and all this kind of jive type stuff. Do you recommend in the book any sort of halfway measures, or are you hardcore all the way?
Plant curious.
Yeah, I say plant curious. I agree with you. I don't think moderation.
When in doubt, make it sexual. Plant curious, yes.
Plant curious. Yes, exactly. But no, but the problem is that a lot of people go into this a little bit more slowly. Even me, I tiptoed into it. It took me since I was a teenager until I was, after grad school to go full on hardcore. And I think for some people that dive in, like when we do with our program, when we take our clients, we dive in hard, and it's intense, but it takes a certain person to be ready. They have to be ready. So we have it for, it's not a moderate approach, but it is like, just try it. Don't be so hard on yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect at first, because it is a stepwise progress for most people.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say? What do you do? Are you talking about the potato thing in this book or not?
No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, so the idea with this is, back to the diet. Everybody wanted a diet book, and you wrote your book, so I didn't have to write a diet book. Remember, I'm not doing that. But the other side of this is that, a lot of people don't want it. A lot of people that follow me want to go deep into science. And there's a lot of debate going on Twitter, on Facebook, and all this stuff, on blogs about, and it ends up becoming this, giant echo chamber, and it just sucks a lot of your energy out. And I didn't really want to be a part of that. And so what this book allows us to do is to cover a lot of it at a high enough level where the average person can understand the basics. What does epigenetics mean, and how will that impact you? How does eating right during your pregnancy matter? Think about Brian's whole message is that pregnancy is a pathway, is a gateway to obesity, because everybody normalizes eating when developing a baby doesn't take that much energy. So Julieanna goes through and has gone through those sections and says, how much do you really need? Because it turns out, what's the extra? You have a visual for the 300 calories and the 540 calories, what it means a day.
Oh, a cup, can of beans. It's really not a big deal. What's so interesting, this book is really like, it's high level, bird's eye view, but it's really comprehensive too. It's almost like encyclopedic. The original version was one of the first books on plant-based nutrition. In fact, they actually hired me to write the Complete Idiot's Guide to Vegan Nutrition. And I petitioned them to change it to plant-based because I knew that this movement was growing. It had nothing to do with ethics. It was all about nutrition.
Is there any ethics in this book?
Not a word.
Not a word about it.
Not a word.
In fact,
we are not ethicists. We are not moralists. We are teaching you how to eat healthy.
What about jokes about Penn's dick? How many of those are?
I think we cut that out after the forward.
But there is one about.
That's why we cut it out. We were trying to. Yeah.
There is one about drugs and. Keith Richards.
Yeah.
Right?
In the forward, yeah.
And do you when you have a person that wants to not go hardcore, but just kind of is there anybody that's at a pretty good weight that's eating a lot of meat?
Oh, yeah, because
yeah.
if we look at, that's what the food triangle is so helpful as a model, because if you are eating a lot of vegetables and you're eating just a little bit of meat and that's where you're getting your calories from, as opposed to eating the starches and the nuts and seeds, you can still lose weight. But I mean, this is what we're going to be studying. We're going to be doing a metabolic ward study on this, because we want to see what happens if you do the same thing, because it's not always about the weight. It's also about what
happens
the constitute.
metabolically.
Yeah.
So like Jonesy is the left side of the food triangle.
Right.
He cut out the right side of the food triangle a little bit. I mean, but ultimately he cut his calories down. I mean, I saw him for the first time, and he just looks great, you know. And he's done this before. It's food, but then the question is, you remember my.
But he's still eating chicken and fish.
Right.
Which
My tiptoe into the plant-based diet was that I lost my weight in 2008, and I did it with a cold, which is what got me sort of on the map of this thing. But my type 2 diabetes didn't go away. My cholesterol was so high. I didn't get better when I lost the weight, and that's when I started transferring. I did this just in an experiment. I just did it as a radical
science.
experiment. I was going to do this for a year. For the same reason you do performance art, I got to kind of do that. And I said, I'm going to do this for a year. And within 45 days, my blood glucose was normalized. And within 60 or 70 days, I had really great cholesterol. And then a little bit time after that, my hemoglobin A1C was right.
So you could be lean, but that doesn't mean everything's going well inside.
Well, we're gonna talk about much more about the book. I want to hear a lot more about the book and how that could be useful. And we're gonna do that on Wednesday, which is actually coming up in 5 minutes. But they don't know this. But for right now, that was Penn Sunday School.
You just told them.
Cha cha cha.
And to our listening ears,
You become naked.
all nature sang and round us rang the music of the spheres.
I shouldn't scream, should I? I want so much to do my scream. My voice is staying pretty strong doing all these shows. I should probably keep it
But
that
that scream right now is like your peanut butter cup.
I know.
Right now your data is beautiful. Do not put that in.
There is no such thing as a motherfucking sugar high. Just as long as you know that. You know I love you. We'll do this next one right away, but first I'm going to pee.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
How close are we? Ready?
You want to read the sugar thing?
Did you find it's real?
Did you?
It was a Harvard study.
We all need sugar.
This is going to be something I have to dig deep. It's not like we'll have to go and look at the actual primary.
Yes, sugar makes
Yeah.
kids hyperactive.
It was out of Harvard.
No such thing as a sugar high. The idea of sugar is funniest myths about sugar.
Oh, here.
Various scientific
Here, click
studies
on
over the years
that.
have determined.
Yeah, click on the published by.
Research.
Mark Woolrich.
H Department of Developmental and Behavioral
So
Pediatrics
you want
at
me to go back
Oklahoma.
to here?
Oklahoma University Health Sciences researched sugar's effect on children in the 1990s.
Oh, dear.
Parents' expectations of the so-called sugar high appears to color the way they view their children's behavior.
So should I come back over there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to have to look deep in that.
Misconception comes
I
from
am
the idea
really
that
curious.
increased blood sugar translates to hyperactive behavior. It's true that someone with low blood sugar levels gets an energy boost from drinking a sugar-filled drink, but it's a different story for people who don't have low blood sugar. Body will regulate these sugars. If it needs, it'll use the energy. If it doesn't, it'll convert it to fat for storage.
Okay, levels up.
No, we got
That's
to
a
look.
whole nother myth.
Yeah, we got to look.
That goes exactly to what you're saying. You're going to find out you're wrong. I'm sorry. It's going to be heartbreaking.
Game on, game on. I'm excited.
Levels all around.
Yeah, you
Check
gotta
it,
let-
check it. Brothers and sisters, welcome to Penn Sunday School.
Test, 1, 2.
Testing,
Sugar is
1, 2,
not
3.
Good.
So you can lean in so you're actually
Sugar not-
touching.
sugar's not
so you
good?
can feel it on your nose.
Oh, right.
No, sugar's not good. Sugar's not good for you at all. And there's no reason to eat it. But sugar high is not one of the reasons.
This
Yep.
is Penn Sunday School.
I don't know about it, so I wouldn't dig in.
No. Don't.
Sings and round us rings the music of the
Go!
Not yet. Now, brothers and sisters, Welcome to Penn Sunday School, starring Penn Jillette. My name is Michael Ludo. Matt Donnelly's not here. We are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas. This week is another interview with the team who is making the world healthy and thin. We've got Cronise and Julieanna Hever. Together, they're going to tell us about their new book, Plant-Based Nutrition, The Idiot's Guide. Here he is preaching love, Mr. Penn Jillette.
Boy, we should do all of them on plant-based. Your introductions are much better.
It's easier when Matt's not glaring down on, it's just better.
Yeah, I think everything's better
He's so
without Matt.
judging. He's so judging.
Okay, you angel-headed hipsters. We're talking diet now. When I went through my zillion of ways to try to... by the way, it was 10 years ago I was going on Dancing with the Stars, and that was the last time I had dropped 40 pounds, I think. I dropped 40 pounds in the way grown-ups at that time did it. Still eating fish and chicken and jive, and exercising a lot, running 6 miles a day and doing all that to get in shape to lose on Dance with the Stars very quickly. And I was going through that then, and I read the stuff, I read my journal from 10 years ago because I'm a teenage girl. Every day, although teenage girls don't have journals from 10 years ago, but that's not important. But I keep the journal because I'm a teenage girl, and all the stuff I just got to exercise more and eat more protein is what I'm saying at the time to myself. And of course that worked to a certain point. 40 pounds is not a trivial amount of weight to lose.
It was your original goal with me.
Yeah.
Can I just lose 40 pounds?
Yeah, that's all I wanted to lose.
That's not a
by
big
tomorrow.
By tomorrow.
But when I would do that, I would get on some jag, and I would read a lot about it, and then I would try it. Now, what is the first step? If someone gets your book, reads your ideal reader, I try to be the ideal Apple customer, and then I try to do when a new operating system, I try to do exactly what they want me to do. I changed from trying to get them to do what I want. Now I do what they want. How do they exactly want me to use this phone? How do they want me to change apps? I'm going to do everything exactly right. You've written this book. When you write a book, you have your reader in mind. Who is the ideal person reading this book, and what do they do after they read the book?
I'm going to give that one to you.
Okay. Well, I think, I don't know who my ideal reader, because we literally cover the entire lifespan from pregnancy, infancy to seniors and athletes and everything. So there's something for everyone in the book. But what I hope is that someone would open their minds when they're reading this book and go, wow, these health benefits are so outrageous. And, people that either have health issues or know someone that have health issues, which is pretty much all of us. And the idea is to get inspired to do something. So if you're not ready to go all crazy and do, what you delineated you did, and what people have talked about in the more extreme way, is just to start, and just to start finding recipes that you like, including there's 75 in the book, something like that. But just finding a recipe that you love and trying a plant-based meal, because most of us eat plant-based meals anyway. Pasta primavera, veggie sushi, a bean and rice burrito. People do that every day, all the time, without thinking about it.
I never did.
Never? Everything had an animal product?
Yeah.
Okay. So then people like you would be a good audience.
Was it a meal without it?
Yeah, that's true. It's a lot of people that think that way.
Sure.
So just starting to incorporate those meals and start to see...
Those people are called Americans.
Right. Yeah. Well, and now more and more everywhere around the world as we westernize.
We've exported it.
We've exported it everywhere. Yeah. We've been very successful with that.
And what I would say, one of the things, a lot of people don't make changes, not just out of what they love or their habits, but just out of fear. There's a lot of people that really believe they're going to become, protein deficient, or that somehow fruit has sugar now, and so everybody's now has this glucophobia that somehow sugar, that you take one thing which is refined out of context, and now suddenly an apple is poison. There's other people that think lectins. I don't know why I couldn't get that out. Lectins in beans are dangerous. And so what ends up happening is that, I think we remove a lot of those barriers and say, look, it's really not that difficult to do this.
The hardest thing for me, I would say perhaps, it's so hard. I shouldn't try to do superlatives here because so many things changed. But one thing that I still catch myself doing, and it's my old way of thinking, is you need air about every 3 minutes. You need water about every 3 days. and you need food about every 30 days.
Yep.
I still find it very hard to accept that there is no nutrient, zero, that I need within a 24-hour period. And there's no nutrient I need within a 48-hour period. And there's no nutrient I need within a 72-hour period.
Or 24 days, and I can't do that math.
Yeah.
But if you want it in hours. But I mean, and I was fine.
And there is nothing. I mean nothing. Now, what's the first thing you need? What's the first thing you need?
It's going to
doesn't really
change.
work
Yeah,
that way.
yeah, it doesn't work that way. It's going to change. So what you know, let's start at the longest medically supervised water fast, which was 382 days. Okay, now he had a multivitamin.
Yep.
He lost 276 or 277 pounds. In the middle of it, it was like day 49 or something to a day, whatever it was, they decided to give him some sodium because his sodium was going a little low. They were monitoring it. But, think about it maybe a different way. We are adapted in a world of scarcity. We can eat almost anything and make it to reproductive age, 15 years. A lot more, we can eat anything.
Or Roy Moore would be 14 years.
Right. 15 to 20 years of reproductive prime. And then another 15 to raise your youngest offspring to, go off with a senator, During that 45 to 50 years, where evolution is the driver, we can survive as a species on just about anything. I mean, all the crazy stuff people eat and live and make it through that part. The question that Julieanna and I address in plant-based nutrition is how to optimize a diet for that, from 50 to the end. How do you mitigate age-related disease? How do you minimize your chances? Because you're not going to become immortal eating carrots. This is a crazy idea.
And the other thing is we don't see scurvy anymore. We don't see, beriberi and pellagra.
And you know why you don't see scurvy? My great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Captain Cook, who said we should bring some fruits on board, and they misunderstood him. And for that, he in that way cured scurvy. He was my guy.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's probably not true. So that's what my mother always said.
So the nutrition story here is that if we think about it, nutrition became sort of the currency of public relations or PR for food. It wasn't just taste, but we created a label. When we create a label, we create a metric system, something that the United States at a government level could manage, could calculate, could tabulate. And this was a really big thing at the turn of the, from the 19th to 20th century, was we're recording, we're calculating things, we're putting numbers on everything. Calories were part of those things. Protein, carbs, and fat in food. We started discovering vitamins and minerals, and then what did we start doing? We started taking highly processed food and then fortifying that food with the stuff that we're stripping out. Now you're selling the fortified food, which now creates these other issues. And now you're telling, now what we've done on the other end of the century is we're basically eating food that's not very nutritious and trying to sell them back supplements, right? So the idea is that I think it's an unintended consequence because I don't think it's conspiracy.
No,
I don't think it's evil corporations. I don't think it's evil pharma.
Never try to explain with conspiracy what can be explained with stupidity.
And I just think the unintended consequence is that people just believe that nutrition is an emergency.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing,
Smart people believe it too.
Yes.
There was a time.
Dietitians and doctors believe
You know
it
what
too.
changed it for me? Naked and Afraid.
Yes.
The TV show. These people are sent out into the woods with no clothes and no food. 21 days later, they've eaten one lizard and they're still fine.
Yeah, and I have a chapter in Our Broken Plate called "Don't Eat the Lizard." Not in this book, in the other one. But this is a really good point, because if it were a huge liability, they wouldn't do the show.
Right.
What's dangerous about that long time without food? Well, one is they eat something that gives them, dysentery, but they can handle that medically. But when they leave the island, they have to control how fast the refeed is, because most of the deaths that happen in long-term fasts is when you refeed, you get this surge in electrolytes or some other things that happen as well, but then you go into cardiac arrest. So the point here is with this is so important, is that why would they be able to do that show?
Right.
You know.
That's what occurred to me all of a sudden.
But-
we really can't go a long time without eating.
But really, I used to think that if one day I was eating, I'd eaten popcorn and bread and other stuff, that I had to have a can of tuna fish, before the day was over, because you had to
You
get
might not wake up if
that,
you didn't.
that
Yeah.
protein in.
Right.
And I always was looking all this stuff about balanced diet.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, I think, and I'm just making this up now as I speak, but if you laid out a perfect nutritional week, let's not say you're fasting. It's
Right.
You're going to eat your perfect weight, everything's going perfect, but you lay out what a person's going to eat for a week. Now, if you chose to break that up so that you were eating all one part on Monday,
Yeah.
all another part on Tuesday,
Sure.
another part on Wednesday, absolutely the same, right?
Well, I like to look at it as more of an overview. So yeah, my 7 years in graduate school studying nutrition was all based on this deficiency model. Everything was based on this paradigm that we're going to be deficient. It's an emergency. But it's not like that, and we can, our body is way smarter than that. So what I like to do is think of it as preferentiating certain foods. So we know that foods like leafy greens and legumes are the most nutritionally dense foods on the planet. Fruits are incredibly nutritionally dense. So I kind of divided. I remade the pyramid, but now we're using the triangle, which I think is much. It's an amazing tool. And looking at foods in terms of getting as much nutritional density as you can, and you can spread it out. You don't have to eat everything within a day. And for people that are nervous or people that are reducing to lose weight, you take a multivitamin, you really don't have to worry about the micronutrients. And we know you don't have to worry about the macronutrients.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, if the paleo diet worked, we wouldn't need Flintstone vitamins. But I take 2 of those Furman pills.
Yeah.
And then he takes omega-3. You take
We take
omega-3.
a long chain omega-3 fatty acids.
And they have some cute name that has, don't they have there's some vegan version.
Yeah,
Ovega.
Ovega-3 is one. Or there's a Diva. There's a couple brands.
I take an Omega-3.
Omega.
Yeah,
He takes
that's what we
omega.
take.
Because the Omega-3 you don't get anywhere.
Oh, well, that's a real complicated, long story, and I'll try to keep it simple. But the only way to get it from plants is from ALA, one form, but then our body converts it to EPA and then DHA. It keeps elongating it. So there's 3 forms of omega-3 fatty acids, and we require all 3 of them. They're essential fats, but they all have different functions. So if you're not eating fish, so fish are in the ocean munching on microalgae, and they convert that ALA from the microalgae into the EPA and DHA. And then when people consume fish, they're getting that already elongated preformed version. But if you're not eating fish, so even omnivores that don't eat fish, we're not getting enough. And people that don't eat any animal products are not getting any of the long chain directly. So that's why we recommend, so here's the thing, that we don't have long-term data on long-term vegans without that we know what happens, because we do have lower levels of the longer chain fats in our blood, but does that have any implications? Because we already know that vegans have a lower risk for cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's and all these things that have been associated with those long chain fatty acids. But because we don't know, we're just having people take direct sources like the microalgae sources, and then you're omitting the middle fish and eliminating all of those pollutants that are found in fish.
The middle
as
fish.
well. Yeah.
Eliminate the middle fish.
Exactly. The animals concentrate nutrition; they don't create it.
Right.
And that's actually a good thing and an adaptive
Yeah, say that
evolutionary
again.
perspective.
That's a really smart thing.
Animals concentrate nutrition; they don't create it. For example, if we take protein, protein is really, there are proteins. Your genes encode, 25,000 or more proteins in your body, and those proteins are made up of those, 20 amino acids. Of those 20 amino acids, there's about 9 of them. They're called essential or indispensable amino acids, and those need to come from diet because we don't synthesize them. In fact, no animal synthesizes them, and the organisms that do are the ones that don't eat plants, and so they do it. This is the nitrogen cycle we learn. So just like what we're seeing here with the fatty acids, the idea is that you eat the plant or eat the animal that ate the plant, but the amino acids came from the plant. You got to eat more of it because an animal is a more concentrated source of nutrition. So immediately then one goes and says, and I think this is a great first assumption, well, they're much more concentrated there. We won't be run short. Remember, this is deficiency thinking. But then we look at all the longevity and studies with modeled organisms, from yeast to primates, and the only way we've ever extended life in the laboratory is by dietary restriction. And one of the specific things that we're learning now is important is the essential amino acids. So like methionine, like leucine, like isoleucine, these things actually need to be restricted in your diet, not deficient.
Not
Restricted.
supplemented and
No,
taken in major doses like all the trainers are recommending and doing.
Right, and we're chronically overnourished. You know, the two other papers, Julieanna and I wrote a paper together, and then I wrote 2 other papers with, Dr. Andrew Bremer at NIH and Dr. David Sinclair at Harvard, and he studies longevity and health span, and Bremer is a pediatric endocrinologist. And, this idea of chronic overnutrition is coming up over and over and over. So and we may have unintentionally, because we were deficient, children were dying before the age of 10 of malnutrition, suffering from a nutrient deficiency that started all of this questioning. And the body's complex, but it depends on what your starting point is. You may be able to last a lot longer than the person right beside you because you don't have as much or they have more B12, or you have more B12 than they in that example. So the situation is that, and because you're fatter, I mean, Julieanna points out, like, there's lots of fat-soluble vitamins that are in the fats, in the rings of the tree. As you start to use the fat, you start liberating some of those fat-soluble vitamins. We were talking to Brian earlier about, the problem with, when someone's pregnant with having those extra liters of blood, dosing of medicine becomes difficult. Same with someone who's overweight. We had that issue when you were losing weight on the way down, and a lot of people don't realize how fast it can become a problem because there's more of you or there's less of you, and you're still taking the same dose of medication, and then it over.
Well, it's just really something. I mean, I would have thought 4 years ago, I would have thought if you go 3 days eating just potatoes, 3 days eating just rice, 3 days not eating, you're going to be in real trouble. Real trouble. And just finding out that you can't do damage to yourself in 1 day. You can't do damage to yourself in 2 days. Can't really do damage to yourself in 3 days is really powerful.
It's liberating.
Because what that allows you to do is you can play a little bit.
Yeah.
And you can find out a little bit.
I mean, what do we think that the Egyptians fed all those slaves that were building the pyramids?
Well, don't start that. Because then you got Tim Jennison, who now thinks the pyramids were built a whole different way.
Right.
So just stop.
All right.
But yes, people live on really remarkably.
It's amazing. I think one of the big awakenings for all of us, and Julieanna, while she only had to lose like 12 pounds in her change of mindset.
But that's still that's at 10% of your body weight.
Yeah.
It's a huge amount.
Yeah.
I
And it
mean,
happened
in
in
a
18
certain
days.
sense, it's what I lost.
Right.
Right.
But
I mean, not really. It's it's half what I lost.
She created that this treadmill mentality, and literally because she was going to work out 2 hours a day, and if you work out 2 hours a day, you have to feed for 2 hours a day, and the body has a really good way of dealing with that little bit of extra energy. So it burns off a lot of that extra energy, but she then has to put it back in. Then you start this all over. And this is one of the reasons I separated exercise and diet, was because it just seemed to me one of these things was anabolic, about grow, and one of these was catabolic, about survival, metabolic winter, And so to me, it just made sense to separate these. Unfortunately, I get tagged all the time as the guy who's against exercise, and I'm not at all. In fact, you started, saying, "Hey, when can I exercise? When can I exercise?" And you enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah.
Because when you started, you're like, "I don't really want to do this. I don't want to do the exercise part."
Right.
And then as you got down, you started.
Yeah.
I remember one time walking by a gym and walking in and grabbing a dumbbell and realizing it was it was the weight of your daughter or something, and you had already lost that amount.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal how that works out. But on the diet thing, when someone wants to just start, I'm gonna still push you on this, because I know you want to say the books for everybody, because that's where you sell the most books, and I know you want to say that they can take any path they want, and that's all well and good. But someone like me, I really like rules.
Yeah.
I really like a program. surprisingly, from the outside, I am not someone who likes any freedom whatsoever. My day is broken up into 15-minute chunks. I want to know what I'm doing all the time. So for someone like that who reads this book, what is the next day like?
Cut out animal products.
Yeah,
Cut out processed foods.
Now, how are you on bees?
You know, I see both sides of this. I choose not to eat not to eat honey or bees, but I don't. It does. You know, I see both sides of that part. I'm not.
That's one of those.
But I don't wear any leather. I don't wear any silk.
Yeah, but that's
or
the
feathers.
ethical part.
I don't do any. Yeah, I am vegan. I am an ethical vegan still. He's
Yeah.
We always say he's an unethical vegan.
Yeah.
But
that was the term Matt King was using, right?
Yeah.
Unethical vegan. In terms of the exercise, first of all, I want to get back to this.
Yeah.
And this is just a conversation we'd have off mic, but I'll have it on mic. 152/92. That's where my blood pressure lives right now.
Yeah.
I'm on one blood pressure medication in a very, very small dose. I've always kept hoping that I'll just be able to get this down with diet, but that's still too high. Should I still hope?
Well, it depends on if you still do the excursions. You know, it's the weight up and down. Joel told you about this when we were in, did our last when we did our last podcast with him. And there's this entertainment side of food, which that dialogue we would have that I completely agree with, and you talk about not being extreme, and it's British Airways, and I have to eat the food. But when you came back from London that time, and it was wicked high. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe you were, like you always say, London voltage, but it wasn't that bad. But it was high, and it was scary. I mean, scary to me because I see this as real. You wrote the foreword to our book. You can't die now. Now I have a dog in the fight.
Financial issue.
Exactly. I know how Teller feels now. So see, but the point here is that I think that switching places, because I just had a recent situation. I've never had hypertension, and since all of my fasts, my blood pressures run 110/67, about. Now, if I go out to the local Rosie's and have chips and salsa, or veggie fajitas, and I usually get it even oil-free, but it's still got salt and stuff, my blood pressure goes up to 120/70 the next day, and within 24, 48 hours, it's, brag, take a screenshot, send it to Penn. Look at mine. It's 110/. Mine's smaller. It's a one time in life you can say mine's smaller and get big points, right? But I went to New York City when we were doing some stuff with the book and some other stuff that Julieanna was due for another show, and we ate our way through New York City vegan junk food, and all the stuff that's there. I mean, it's everywhere.
It's
Matthew
the vegan
Kenny
Mecca.
has great
restaurants. It's my fault.
I mean,
it's my fault. I mean, I love going to New York.
The pizza place up there is amazing. Anyway, I came back, and I took my blood pressure. I just didn't feel good. I just felt like the sodium swell that we all know about. Yeah. You have restaurant food and you feel blah the next day. And I took my blood pressure, and it was 134/99. It's never been 134, ever over 99. So I'm now into that zone. So I now, with that long preface, say, I really can't do this. I need to get it down to where it should be. I'm probably going to have to exercise more frequently because I know that'll help get it down some. And I'm going to really watch more about, I really want to watch more about what I'm doing in restaurant food. I mean, we had this discussion today at lunch. Do we go out to eat tonight, because there's really great places that we could possibly go, or do we go back to Whole Foods because they happen to have a really amazing salad bar there, and I had a ton of fruit today, and it would just taste great, etc. So it means we might need to make some real choices that say, for a while, this is not just performance art, but this is life. What can we do to make it perfect?
Yeah. Well, what my diet is now, what I am when I'm not doing the potatoes and trying to come down, what I do, what I eat is, I would say never. The times that this breaks are so rare, like maybe once a month. I do not eat a mouthful, not a single calorie, until 5:30 p.m. That's just absolute rule. I've completely gone out of the habit of doing that. I don't even consider any sort of lunch or breakfast or anything ever. I drink about 2 or 3 liters of concentrated, decaffeinated cold brew coffee.
This bitter thing.
Yeah.
It's an unspeakable amount.
Wow.
You know when you buy the cold brew setup and they say you put one part of this with 2 parts water? I do no parts water. I drink when I go out to Starbucks. I get a venti cup full of nothing but decaf espresso. So that's 12 shots of decaf espresso, and I drink more than that at home.
I wonder if just that little bit of calf in the decaf.
There is.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
well,
yeah.
no.
By the time
It's
you
about
do
a
12.
Blood pressure.
It's about a cup of coffee. It's about a cup of coffee.
All of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 1/50th. The general rule is 1/50th. And the decaf that I get is not usually at Starbucks. I get decaf at home, which is done by organizations that do it really
But
well.
I mean, collectively.
That's what
Have
I'm
you
saying.
calculated it? It's still
Collectively.
about 100
It's 1/50th.
milligrams?
It's
Okay.
1/50th. So 50 cups of coffee, right? That's more than that. So I'm getting maybe 2/3 of a cup of coffee. Which, by the way, after drinking 2 pitchers of that concentrated decaf coffee, I can feel a little bit of the caffeine because I never have caffeine, so I feel a little bit of it. But that's 1 cup of coffee. No one's going to argue.
But some people are extra sensitive.
Yeah, I don't think it's me.
Okay.
And I go to 5:30, and then I eat a huge meal, a gigantic salad, and then whatever my wife happens to cook, but a lot of beans and straight out of Furman, straight Furman. And then I eat a huge amount of fruit for dessert. Like lately, it's been pomegranate seeds, and I mean like $20 worth. I mean like this many.
So it's like a cup full. No, I'm kidding.
cup.
Yeah, no,
I'm
she's
just kidding.
laughing.
3 cups. No, really, 3 cups.
Yeah.
You know those containers they have like this?
Yeah.
5 of them.
Wow.
So I eat a lot of pomegranates. When pomegranates are out of season, I know it's not the pomegranate seed. I know it's not a seed. It's also shut up. What's that?
Oranges.
Yeah, oranges, but
Berries. I thought you loved berries.
blueberries.
Yeah.
Blueberries and blackberries with cayenne pepper on them and a little bit of cocoa.
I know you're
But I mean like this much.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I eat. Then I go do the show, and then after the show, if I'm really lucky, I come home and eat nothing. But that's rare. If I'm not lucky, I come home and I try to eat something instead of peanut butter, and then end up putting peanut butter on top of that.
Defeated.
Interestingly, the bigger the meal before the show, the more likely I am to eat after the show.
That's right. The more you eat, the more you want. That's how it goes. The more sugar you have, the more sugar you want. The more quantity you have, the more your stomach wants.
But I've never been able to stop. And maybe one of these days I'll hit this.
You
Stop
love
without
this.
being full.
You love the feeling full.
I do. I love the feeling of full.
So in the book, we talk about Harahachibu.
Harahachibu. It's a Japanese. It's a principle from Okinawa, and it means technically 80% full.
Yeah, I know. No one can do that. Give it up. Rip that part out of your book and throw it away. Burn it. It's nonsense.
You're redacting your forward.
But let me tell you the other side of this that also intrigues you.
Haradakadu?
I know this is, and this will back you up on the moderation side. You know, when you're eating nothing, so you really hate the fact that the biggest issue that you have with not being able to take off from the show is you really want to fast for a long time.
I really do.
You really want to do that.
Really do.
You really want. And so, I just did for 3 or 4 days. And
well, I can do 2 days falling off a log.
That's right. And then the point is that at some point into this, a day in, whatever, this desire to eat, even around all these guys all weekend, just sort of falls away.
Yeah, it's easy.
And I'm suggesting to you is that that satiation that you get with the stretch bands and the fullness, as you do that less and less, that point starts to slide.
Yeah, I'm starting to believe.
Okay, so all I'm saying is I think you can just like you've habituated yourself to be able to swallow a lot, you could habituate yourself to swallow less.
Well, he does just by the fact that he goes till 5:30. He's made that a habit. Which is the same thing.
But when he eats, the process of eating, he likes to gulp and eat a lot, and I do. And eating's over when you swallow, and so he just wants to put more in there and chew and taste it. I get this, and I think anybody that's overweight gets this. John Henney and I were just talking about that when we were together, and this idea, he's now in this whole new zone because he just 360 down to 215, I think he is today, and he's now in this whole new zone where he's like really careful about adding food back because his desire to eat is there, and it's really interesting. When I added food back yesterday or whatever night it was, and I ate a couple of things, and all of a sudden the desire to eat starts coming back. So I think it's something that you could work on, but again, it's something that both you and I actually everybody has the same problem. We just solve it in a different way. Is you like to do these things with performance art where it becomes this rule that you make for yourself, this arbitrary rule you make for yourself. I like to do it with science. What we've done as a team with Just Sides is create a transformation program so that people can actually go through a process step by step. That's outside of the book, but step by step, so they have that framework they do. But it's going to take some period of time where you say no matter what. You're just going to have to say no matter what. If otherwise, I don't think it's going to change. And I think the habit, if we look at it from an adaptive evolutionary perspective, what's the downside to overeating?
Right.
What's the downside to storing a little extra fat when you live in a calorie-scarce world?
Yeah.
They're both adaptive advantages. How would we ever evolve to eat less?
Sure.
Yeah, you couldn't.
Right?
No chance.
The only species that are obese and chronically ill are us and the pets we keep warm and overfed, and they get exactly the same diseases. So, the point is that it's probably our biology, and back to the one point you've made a lot about everything about food is habit. This realization.
Yeah, there's a book which I think it's called First Bite. That I started reading. I didn't read the whole thing yet. It's a phenomenal book. And this woman sets out she's a journalist. She wants to talk to scientists. And it's a great thing in the book. It's what she kicks it off with. She wants to talk to scientists, and she wants to get both sides of the argument of people who think that you have natural inclinations for certain foods and people who think it's habit, right? She wants to think the continuum there. And she can't find one scientist on the other side that says anything except that it's habit. There is no single food whatsoever that you desire. The fact that I like grilled cheese
habit,
and you like broccoli, all habit. Everything you grew up saying, I'm the kind of guy that likes this, you don't like the bone candy, I do like the bone candy.
Yep.
All of that is habit. There's nothing whatsoever natural.
I completely agree with that.
Nothing. And she also says she can't find a scientist to say different.
Yeah.
They can't find one study where they were able to take children and say, they tried all these, letting babies pick their food and nothing but habit. And habits that you fall into instantly and accidentally and without knowledge, but still it's all habit.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing is what I crave.
Right.
I don't crave, what I used to crave. I crave different foods now.
Right, and there's two ways to deal with a habit. For example, I always loved mayonnaise. I love mayo. And
it's good food. That's why.
And I like Duke's mayo. That was the brand I like. Duke's is just. I don't know if it's just in the South.
I'm not a brand name guy.
Okay.
I'm just not a brand name.
I like Duke's. I like the flavor of it. But 9 years ago or 8 years ago when I started doing this, I cut that out and I started making my own. My mother makes it as well, and I've gotten accustomed to this stuff, mayonnaise, and it tastes really good. It tastes just like when I make tomato sandwiches in the summer. I love tomato sandwich.
But it's made out of tofu and cashews and
and
like
lemon, and apple cider vinegar, and it has all the flavors. I use a tiny little bit of that volcanic salt that has the sulfur smell to it to give it sort of that egg flavor, and it's really, really good. So the point here is that I'm sure to a person that just takes a package of mayonnaise and they taste it, it will taste different. But then I say, well, mayonnaise is just made up. It's just a made-up food. It isn't right.
It's the Stradivarius argument. The reason we have so much trouble making a Stradivarius sound like a Stradivarius is we shot a dart at the side of a barn and painted a target around it.
Yeah.
Now we want a Stradivarius. It was nothing to do with anything else.
And that's what we say about everything. Compared to what?
Exactly.
Compared to
Compared
what?
to what? That is our question with everything. With sugar highs, with mayonnaise.
Eat
Not
meat,
with
don't
sugar
eat
highs. You're
meat,
wrong
butter
with sugar highs.
butter versus oil.
I will get back to
know,
Now, let me just ask. Just ask you this: if when I decide that I'm going to have bread and butter, and I'm just as happy with bread and a little bit of olive oil, have I made an improvement there?
Yes.
I really have.
Yes.
It's not just.
Yes.
So when I eat vegan junk food, I didn't say
No.
drunk food, junk food.
No, that's different.
Okay. But if I take olive oil and I take vegan bread and I put that in, I'm better off than bread and butter.
Yes. But the
But remember
difference.
that directly is a scale, though. It's not going to be healthy for you. It's
Right.
just not as
Compared
bad.
to what? So eating bread and olive oil compared to bread and butter is better. Eating bread and olive oil compared to brown rice with avocado would be better.
I see.
You know, so it's all on a spectrum. And I like to say that to people, that it's compared to what is the most important question.
And
Versus arsenic.
yeah, exactly.
Well, there's no
And-
such thing as poison, just dosage.
And the other side of it is,
What's the LD50 on bread and butter?
and the brown
I'm willing to do the testing on this.
and the,
Just so-
and the brown rice and avocado, the starchy and the fatty flavors. You know, what was the secret to winning every cooking show?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole. The cooking shows are amazing. You know, I learned to win cooking shows, and I learned to quit without any cooking experience. I had Jet Tila who said, "We're not teaching you to cook because we're teaching you. You'd be fired from any restaurant. You'll make your whole family sick. You'll kill yourself. But this is how you'll win on cooking shows." And he just showed me it's just fat, sugar, salt in
Period.
infinite amounts. Infinite
So
amounts.
when we look at this, the
Because they're
experience.
going to take one mouthful.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to judge.
Right, right.
So they're not checking food at all.
Right, but even that combination, that's what it takes. That's what chemists are in the lab designing foods to be as palatable as possible, so you can't eat just one.
Yeah.
And I worked in my internship, I spent a lot of time in kitchens, all sorts of different restaurants. Sugar, salt, and oil.
That's all
Sugar,
they
salt,
do.
how
Yep.
butter. Yeah. It's
So what I was going to
It's
say about the
palatable.
avocado and brown rice is it's not as sweet, you know, it's not as decadent, it's not as fatty as the bread and the olive oil, you know. And if you adapt to this, you get the same kind of feel. You get the mouthfeel of the fat from the nuts and seeds, or the dressing, or the avocado and the brown rice and stuff. You get the same kind of sort of satiation, or from a potato when we look at a whole food potato. But when your normal is bread, you know, and butter, or bread and olive oil, you're up the scale on flavor. If you live in Crete and bread and butter is limited, and you work really hard during the day in the fields, and that is your calorie source, you're going to be economically limited, and you're going to be just fine. If you have the budget of Penn, where you're eating all that fruit, and you get bread and butter, you can easily go over the line. So it's about that. What's your new normal? You know, until the new diet is equally convenient, familiar, and enjoyable, you really don't have a choice. One of those three things is going to win. And what you did when you made your transformation in silos, in certain food categories, in certain places, you made those new foods convenient, familiar, enjoyable. And that's where you've had your long-term success. And I think the problem that we have, because we're a society of one meal that takes breaks to sleep and work, we're in this situation where everywhere you go, you've got this social, foundation of food.
I've conquered so much of this.
Yeah, it really has.
It's astonishing, because I don't, very, very rarely. I mean, the only time was actually yesterday when I was flying back from Dallas. This is like the only time I've done this. And when the flight attendant came over and gave me the first class little thing of salted nuts, right? I always go, no thanks. I was reading, so they were there. And I didn't say no thanks. And I went, well, it's just nuts. Still vegan. And I ate those. And then I got to the theater, and I was starving, had to have some more nuts to get me through, until the show. Then I had my baked
Well, they
potatoes
call them
before-
appetizers
back
for a
when-
reason.
Yeah. But
and this is true. I mean,
tonight before the show, I'll have beans and rice, and I'll be done.
Right.
Of course, Bob Dylan. I can live on beans and rice. It's a line from Bob Dylan. It's in the canon. It's in the canon. I can live on beans and rice is in the Bob Dylan canon. I mean, what more do I want? Bob Dylan has said I can live on beans and rice. I don't need you.
And so it is.
And buckwheat zydeco.
But and I've been now I'm experimenting with exercise. Now I'm experimenting with exercise.
How good does that feel now after?
Well, it never feels good because of time. If I had time, I mean, you don't know how segmented my life is. 5 minutes doing something else. It's like John Henney going, we're talking about vocal warm-ups. Can you do this? And he goes, you can do this in 5 minutes. I go, I can't see a time in the day when I have 5 minutes. Now, obviously, I have the same amount of time as everybody else.
Well, but we were just talking the other day about how insanely productive you are. So now we know why.
But trying to choose stuff. But
Yeah.
what I've been trying to do was I've been reading all this stuff that says really intense workout and then stopping.
Interval training.
Hit.
Interval training.
Hit, yeah.
Interval training. And so I've been trying this experiment. I said, well, if you can do interval training, they talk about, run as hard as you can for a minute, then cool down for 4, another minute, cool down for 4 or 3 or 2 or something. I said, what about if I just do interval training, but over a period of an hour, and in between work on my computer? What if I run as hard as I can in place for a minute, and then do something else? Then run in place for a minute, then do something else. Can I do 3 minutes of exercise and really make a huge difference? And I believe it is. I believe I feel better.
Didn't you say you no longer eat breakfast and lunch?
Yeah.
What'd you do with that time?
That time went right into writing stuff. That's the book Presto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can. I mean, they've
But I can
studied-
also eat while I'm doing stuff.
But you see
and you
the
can
point.
exercise while you're doing stuff. But I mean, they've
But also,
and
I
it
can't
doesn't-
go outside now, which is driving me crazy. I used to love riding my bike.
Oh.
I can't ride my bike because I can't get out with the pollen.
And there is a thing, but there is a differentiation between being active and exercise.
I know.
So what you guys used to do, I know it's this.
Well, you
spike
saw
in
the show
outside.
last night. There's some energy expenditure in
yes,
the show.
it was amazing. That's
We
what
might
was
call
going
that
on.
some exercise.
I would
Yeah.
say absolutely.
Yeah, and so you are active.
I am
outside of that. So other than you want to change shape, put on more muscle mass.
I don't need more
I know
muscle
that's
mass.
not your thing, but
I have other people to open jars for me.
right.
And I also don't eat mayonnaise anymore.
Right.
So the only purpose I had
Peanut butter.
the only purpose I had for muscle was masturbation opening mayonnaise. You can outsource both of those. Easy. I used to have, when I was training, I used to have, I had this woman who's a
Wiggling.
bodybuilder who weighed 110 pounds. But it was a real serious lifter, and she was training me, which was wonderful because she was like world class lifting, and I could, as a fat fuck, lift more than her just because she was so light. And she asked me, and it was uncomfortable. She said, since we've been doing all this work on your arms and on your grip, have you noticed any difference? Because she'd measured and stuff, and I was building muscle. She said, have you noticed any difference? And I said, I don't mean to offend, but only during masturbation. I'm wicked stronger now, and I like that.
There you go.
Was that the first time she heard that?
I don't know. I didn't ask her that. That was done.
You were
But
a trainer?
Yeah, no one ever said that to me. Yeah,
But someone else has noticed it.
perhaps.
Believe
They just weren't bold
believe
enough
me.
to say it.
But what do you think about exercise?
Yeah.
Do you cover that in your book at all?
We do. We
Yes.
have a whole chapter on exercise and a whole section for plant-based athletes for sports nutrition.
First of all, not an athlete.
Yeah, no, but we have a whole
Right.
chapter on exercise itself. I mean, I come from a personal training background. I've been
I
doing
know.
this my whole life. I love fitness. We don't say that exercise is bad. Exercise is
course not.
crucial for a million reasons. We just separate it during the weight loss phase.
Sure.
So it's wonderful. But what you were saying, going back to what you're saying about doing small increments throughout the day, that has been shown to be the same as doing it contiguously. And so it's, just move more. We just want to encourage people to move more. I was doing all that athletic stuff, and I got injured. Everyone gets injured when you're doing it really hardcore. And we're talking now, we've moved into health span and longevity, and that to do that and to keep your joints longer and to avoid injury and all that, move more, lift some, stress your bones, stress your muscles in a good way. It's important for longevity to feel good and to be agile and stay flexible.
In the Blue Zones by Dan Buettner, when they looked at these, 6, longest lived societies.
Vertical living.
Yep.
Run up and down stairs.
Yeah.
But it wasn't exercise.
No.
It was they were active in their lifestyle. They were herders. They went out and they were fishermen and they were physically active.
We found out how.
And this may mean that your magic show is active. And
Well, we found out how many calories I was putting out during my show.
yeah. Well,
It was nutty.
we measured bells, right?
nail gun.
I'm sorry, nail gun. Yeah, I don't have the data, but I mean I'd have it back then, but yes.
Yeah, I was. Just talk. I mean, my voice has been weak. When my voice is weak, the energy
forgot
of the
we did
show
that.
goes way, way, way up, because talking that much takes a lot.
No,
and
I
also, I
can't believe
do
how
the
active
show.
you are.
I do the show wicked loud.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're big.
I got
It's
mics.
big and-
I got mics,
Yeah.
but I'm yelling.
And one thing that's really important to think about when we talk about separating diet and exercise is, the simple idea that gets everybody in debates and causes all kinds of confusion is,
Segregation? No,
Besides-
that's already been solved. We're just coming back to that.
the idea that I'm eating a certain amount of calories, or my body's using a certain amount of calories, and so if I would just use some more calories, my body would plow through the fat storage faster. And the problem is that as you become more active, you end up shifting to the wrong calories. In other words, you actually have two fuel sources. So, if you're trying to get to the bottom of the peanut butter jar, and your spoon keeps hitting the mayonnaise jar, you always have a full jar on the shelf, and that's exactly what happens, when you're more active. And
That was probably the worst analogy.
I didn't understand a word of that. You want to try it again?
Absolute nonsense.
it was
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah.
I think I know what you meant.
Try again. Throw out the peanut butter and the mayonnaise. Try again and explain what you mean. Did you follow him?
I got a little confused with the peanut butter versus the mayonnaise. I'm like, what does that mean if you eat one, you
How
don't
about
have
we
the other
do
one?
it sugar and fat?
How about you just start
Talk
again?
about your study.
Well, the point of it is that you're trying to use this storage fat, this stored fat, the adipose organ. But when your explosive activity is better fueled by glucose.
Oh, I see.
And so what ends up happening is when you get into the explosive energy zone, and the reason why this is because you can actually use more energy with glucose than you have oxygen coming in. And when you're talking about burning things, you need a flame that has oxygen there, and when you don't have enough oxygen, the flame doesn't burn as much. But glucose can actually which is essentially ferment, but it's an anaerobic process where it gets oxidized, but it becomes part of the energy cycle without using oxygen. Whereas fat, you can with glucose you can use 100% of the glucose you have of your VO2 max, which is the exchange that you have. Whereas with fat, you can only use about 50 to 75% of VO2 max. And so what this really comes down to in a practical sense is that you're basically drawing energy from different stores with intensity. Now, this is what gets a lot of people to go on these ketogenic diets and take starches and sugars completely out so they don't have stores of glycogen, so they force their body to always be using fat. That's one way to do it. And it works. It absolutely works. But in a normal kind of diet that's mixed, where you do have glycogen stores, where you do have normal stores of glucose, your body's, the more intense you're doing things, the more you're sourcing from there. Where you think about someone like these fishermen or these herders, they're just walking leisurely. So they're burning calories, but they're not telling their body always to go full over onto the glucose. So what I meant by the exercise stuff is that, exercise, a lot of times the best idea is let's work really hard and get it done fast. And this would be like, I would say from your perspective is even the creative process. It doesn't always happen just because you worked really hard in the moment. You have deadlines, and ultimately you have to meet your deadlines, but normally I think we would say that wow, if I could have worked on that a little bit more, or you think later, if I could have done this, would have been more creative. And I think the same thing goes with exercise. You can do it more intensely, but you may not be burning more fat. So the whole advantage of burning more calories, expending more energy, becomes difficult, whereas reducing calories on the other side happens really
or
fast.
like the fact that you went up, 74 flights of stairs and burned 3 M&Ms?
Yeah, it was 4 and 8 Oreo cookies to walk
74.
Now
upstairs.
you never eat off program, right?
My thing will be French fries, or New York City when I'm filming and I had been in front of all my favorite restaurants and just eating too much, and including oil. Like I went to all these vegan restaurants and had oily foods, and it wasn't perfect. And sriracha, I'm a sucker for sriracha and hot sauce. So yeah, I don't ever
you
eat
eat a lot of
animal.
hot sauce?
I can't eat it fast enough. It's like I need it direct to the vein.
I just bought. Oh, this was a heartbreaker. I bought the big jug of Tabasco.
Yeah.
Because Tabasco is really low salt.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a good choice. But I bought the sweet one, and I hit the wrong button on Amazon. And I said to my wife, please let me not know that mistake happened. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I don't want to throw it away. You throw it away. Get rid of it and get another one just like it and act like I didn't make the mistake. Just lie to me.
erase it.
But I eat tremendous. And you should try. You should let me cook my berry with cocoa and cayenne.
Oh, yeah.
Because no one else is able to eat it. Dr. Oz had to leave the
She
set
loves hot
to
stuff.
clean his mouth
I would
out.
love to try the way you make it. I love anything. It's the spicier, the better.
And when I eat my potatoes, now, I just every mouthful is
Me too.
hot. And I can put on a tremendous amount of Tabasco. But I'll tell you, I've tried other brands and stuff, and I still like the Tabasco.
Have you tried the Chipotle Tabasco?
That's
Yeah, I don't like it too smoky.
I like that
don't
one.
like smoky.
Oh, okay.
Smoky's not a thing for
No.
me.
Nutritional yeast,
Yeah, Nuch
sriracha,
and sriracha.
and Chipotle,
I like
Tabasco,
all that.
the
I
three
like all.
food groups.
The other thing is that I also want no work. So if we lived in a world that all the food around was really easy, that makes no difference to me. I'm someone who loves school lunches because I just love just tell me what to do, And I'm also I've told you this before. The hardest part of this whole diet, without a doubt, is that I used to go to restaurants. Every restaurant, I used to say, bring me out whatever you want, whatever's going bad, whatever you want to get rid of, bring it to me. Bring me the thing you want to rip off the menu, anything you want to do, bring me the food, I'll eat it. I promise you, I never ever complain, I never send anything back. So if you're cooking something for another table and they've rejected it, bring it to me and charge me. Do anything you want. I was so proud of that. I was so proud that I'd go into Indian restaurants where they spoke very little English and said, bring me whatever you want. Just bring me anything. And I used to go around with Tim Jennison.
Yep.
We'd go around London. Every restaurant we'd go into, bring anything. I love that so much.
Tim and I did that too.
And what I really don't like about this diet is having to go in and tell people how to cook. So I've solved that by I don't eat out at all. And if I do eat out, I eat
You can go to
potato.
Panavino here, and they did that for us last night.
Yeah, he
we
gave
just
us.
told him
We said
bring-
whatever you want.
and he was back in the kitchen
He was so
himself fixing
excited.
stuff.
Yeah, I should.
Loves it.
I
He
should.
really. He
There'll
does
be
such a
more and
great
more
rush.
places that I'll be able to do that.
Right. And
It's
I'll tell
getting
you this.
easier. But yeah, see, no.
And you know where you can't do it? McDonald's.
Yeah.
I've tried it at McDonald's a zillion times. They will not do it. I'll say, just bring whatever food you want, whatever's getting old
Right.
on the spring, and just
See,
charge
it's a
me.
self-limiting. That's why fast food's out.
They will not do it.
What I was going to say is that, I'm motivated mostly for the animals still. Like, it's still the most important thing for me. I'm still not, I haven't been hit with a major health issue yet. So for me, it's like, there was nothing I would do. I could be really hungry in the middle of nowhere and I won't eat an animal product. So that motivates me. This blood pressure thing with Ray now, that scared us. And so that motivates him. But I think what you're scared by, you've had this.
Bears.
Yeah, it's
I'm
scary.
scared of bears.
But
Tastes good.
Yeah. But I mean, having that underlying motivation is so powerful, and I think that's who I guess we're talking to in this book, and that's who we talk to in general, because this is a solution. This does work, but it does. You do need to keep. It's a lifelong thing. It's something that's going to continue to
Most
come
people
up.
come through this because of a life-changing event happen, and it's normally
But that
health.
never worked. I've said this so many times. I don't believe anything anyone says to me on New Year's Eve, in the hospital, or right after they come. And sometimes those three things happen at once to me.
Right.
Those people do buy the book, though.
Yes.
Yeah. But we have a mutual friend who went to the hospital with a real emergency heart attack and talked the whole time about how I'm going to eat perfect when I get out, and then 3 days later was at Cinnabon.
Yep.
You know, me, I did not say in the hospital I was going to eat right. I made that decision slowly over the next 3 weeks, and you were there for all the deliberation, and so were you. I just think the Damascus experience, I don't think works. I think you have to go.
But it can be an event to get your attention.
Get your attention. Yes.
And then Plant Curious makes sense. In other words,
and if plant curious and bi curious are simultaneous, you're going to have a better lifestyle change.
Well, there you go.
Just no doubt. If you have sex with more people while you're eating plants, it's going to work better for you. So bi curious and plant curious simultaneous, I'm all for.
We cover childbirth, and pregnancy.
That's sexy.
So,
That's as sexy as we get, I think, in the book.
Yeah.
But that'll be the next book. Yeah.
So I think that this, getting started for me was more like getting started for you. When I decided I was going to do the plant-based, experiment, because that's what it was for me, I did it for a year. Started on November 23rd, 2009. I know when exactly. I bought 21.5 pounds of vegetables from Costco or Sam's. I don't remember which one it was, but one of the big box stores. And, I was, no matter how I failed, and for a month or two, I was miserable because I didn't know what to cook. My routine was all messed up. I couldn't go to the store without a list. I couldn't cook without a recipe, and both of those made it uncomfortable. But slowly but surely, I started working through it, and I had these new habits. For a person that wants to do something like this, and I bought the first edition of her book. It was one of the tools that I had. That one, I had a number. Joel Furman's was one, etc. And I wish I had just looked at one of them and said, I'm just going to follow this for a while and see how it goes.
Well, I always think
I was going to figure it out.
You do not. It's this thing that makes me crazy, which is people who hire people for advice and then don't take it.
Oh, that happens to me all the time.
When I go to a lawyer, I spend $450 an hour, and then I know people who will argue with that lawyer.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You can argue with that lawyer for free. Just don't hire that lawyer. Glenn's worked with us for 20 years. Glenn does our PR. He does our management. I take every piece of advice he gives. I believe Glenn and I figured that once a year, I go, I don't know if we should, but other than that, I just do it. So with a book like yours, you buy the Plant-Based Idiot's Guide, and you just go, I am going to take this as gospel. This is the canon. I will go with this. And give yourself a couple months and then ad lib. Once you know what the game is, then you can ad lib, then you can grow on it, and then you can also reject it. It's just you can't learn anything by going half-assed.
That's right. And what I like to liken it to learning a new language, because it really is. We see our plate with the piece of meat in the middle of it. That's how we were all raised. It's just what we know. And so learning wow, there's 12 different types of lentils out there. Let me try a new one. Or wow, there's 8 different colors of rice. Let me try a different one. And then putting together, that's like the little letters, and then putting it together and making words, making a recipe. And all of a sudden you learn these sentences, and suddenly you can go to the market and go, I'm going to make that recipe off the top of my head, and I know I need blah, blah, blah because I don't have that at home. And all of a sudden it becomes second nature. You slowly become fluent. And it takes time. But I think, with something like this, because it is a dramatic shift, it takes time. Your palate needs to shift. It takes about 3-4 weeks, sometimes a little bit more, for you to get rid of all of that hyperpalatable, that you're used to, the habits that you've trained your palate to expect. And all of that stuff happens. Your microbiome changes. So give it a good, 3-4 months. And dramatic things happen quickly, but over time it happens even more, and you reap the benefits longer. And then if it doesn't work for you, which I still have yet to see, then you have to rethink everything. One of the things that's really important on this that we go into specifically in the book is that we don't use the term vegan. And that's not any disparage to that. It's just the fact that it's not an adjective.
You can disparage that,
but that's not our intention.
Right.
It's just not an adjective that works well to
I know it's
distinguish
so
healthy food.
It's so confusing.
And
It is
so
now, especially.
And so, one of the things, I mean, this is for me, when I'm doing something different, I like it to be really different. I wasn't the one that wanted to go make fake versions of what I'm eating now. You said this earlier,
I hate that.
this idea of, the fake this, and, we've
Meatloaf.
got
I can make a meatloaf.
yeah. So for me, and then now there are a lot of dishes that leaving the meat out doesn't change the dish. So like pasta and sauce, you can have pasta and sauce and leave it out.
Emily found this pasta that's just
Quinoa or lentils. There's all sorts of new ones.
Is that good? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, it's okay. So it's one step away from the original form, but it's still. I mean, it depends on. It's going to be more
Compared to what?
calorie. It's compared to what? So compared to the lentil, no, but compared to
I see.
white rice, yes.
Yes. So this idea that we have these new recipes, you have some in the book. There's more on our site, justsides.com. The idea that we could continue to have new recipes, and you just say, I'm going to be doing something new, and the reason why that doesn't work for a lot of people is because it is work to go buy something new. I mean, there are so many times when I've had people say, I went, I got this recipe, I bought $40 worth of ingredients that I don't know what they were, that I don't normally have. I fixed this meal and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so, but remember, first look at what you're already eating and see that there's a lot of plants, mostly plants in your diet now, and can I fix those a little differently?
For those of you not in the South, it took me a while to get used to this. Means fix means
Fix
to
'em.
make or
Make.
cook, prepare.
Can I make them differently? So the idea is that
So if someone's fixing to get ready to start doing this,
fixing to fix.
Exactly.
fixing to fix, yeah.
Yeah, fixing y'all.
Yeah, start with familiar. If you hate broccoli, don't eat broccoli. It's like find stuff you like and look the recipes. There's hundreds of thousands of recipes now.
Soups and stews and soup, stews, chilies. These are the way to go.
There's no soup that you can't throw brown rice in and make it wicked better. The thing that my go-to comfort food now is this pea soup that's out of the Furman book. That's fabulous. That I just want to
like
eat
that.
all
I
the
like
time.
it too.
Love
I've
pea
made
soup,
I've
yeah.
made his pea soup. It's great.
Yeah, it's just the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, so that's what I think. This is what we intended to do. We have a guide that, and there's many people that come and say, I want to go plant-based and I'm a runner. I want to go plant-based and I'm a
pregnant.
mother.
Yeah, I'm a mom.
So
My kids.
so that's it's segregated by those kinds of lifestyle.
Well, just
issues.
one part of the book is.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's all the why. Like, why is this so amazing? Look at how the data looks. I mean, it's incredible what can happen as you've experienced and exemplified. But, and then the how and then the details. I mean, there's so, it's really exciting. It's a whole plant-based
Well,
world.
also, my motivation, his is the blood pressure, yours is cute animals. And my motivation is now I have a book that's sold zillions of copies and is still selling. And if I get wicked fat, it'll stop selling.
Right, and our forward.
Yes.
No pressure, extra pressure.
But I would think that those people have been listening to this show for years and done this weight loss with me and thought about the weight loss with me. And I think plant-based, the Complete Idiot's Guide, right? Plant-based.
I think they took out complete for this version. Now their books it's plant-based nutrition, Idiot's Guide. 2E. 2 edition. Yeah.
Second edition.
Second edition.
And they'll see on Amazon. They'll see my name as an author as well.
And I think it'll really very soon start popping up on Amazon as people who bought Presto also bought.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll start pairing that up really soon. But really do. I think I think I may actually read the book.
You should.
It'll be out in the Kindle version, right?
Yes.
We're
We're
working
working on getting that. We're working on
The way you dislike animal products, it's the way I dislike paper.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I do not like
Yeah.
paper. I won't look at paper at anything. People give me a book and say, I go, electronic version. I don't want to touch anything. I just don't like things, except for Happy Birds. I like Happy Birds. Okay, but good. What else do you have to say about your book? Anything else? And yeah.
Well, we go into oxidative priority. This is the idea that fuels are prioritized when you take them in. Alcohol having the highest priority, proteins.
So
amino
glad I
acids.
didn't have to quit drinking. Not drinking makes it so easy because you have to worry about not quitting.
And protein on the next level, and then carbohydrates on the next level, and then finally fats. And when I say those words, one of the other chapters deals with macro confusion. I just didn't describe food groups. Those are elements of fuel that happen in food. And so you take someone could have a wine and a plant-based cheese and a cracker, and what's going to end up happening is as soon as you drink that alcohol, it's going to become the highest priority. The second priority is going to be get rid of the glucose from the cracker, and they're going to store all the fat. And they're going to say, when I started drinking wine, I gained weight. But it was the plant-based cheese that caused them the problem.
It was a trifecta. It was eating it all together.
But you didn't store the cracker or the wine as fat. It doesn't convert at an appreciable rate when we actually measure it carefully. And so, and because diets are always mixed, this is always, the in the error bars that you don't really see. So,
but we talk about how to scam that.
Talk about how to hack it and use that to your advantage. And then the macro confusions. One of the things we really want people to do is stop calling foods protein, carbs, and fat.
Oh, I know that.
That's our biggest,
and so
mission.
we talk a lot about why that's the case in really simple ways. We talk about some things like epigenetics, which are changes that can happen to your DNA.
That genes may load the gun, but diet and lifestyle pull the trigger.
Right.
They're kind of like the concept behind that.
A lot of metaphors.
Yeah.
So
No wonder it took so long to write it.
Gotta go with all those.
This one went fast, and for me, to address, because a lot of the crowd here backed me on Our Broken Plate, and I'm grateful beyond belief for doing that. I have a lot of that done.
You're almost done.
Yeah,
You're
really
gonna
am.
finish this book.
But the point of this is
She's new. She's
Damn it.
fucking new.
No,
You're
no,
gonna
no.
finish the book. She's new.
but
The new
here-
guy says she's gonna finish the book.
I'm on it. I'm gonna make sure it happens.
I know I'm not going to do it through a publisher. I learned a lot. You've published a lot of books, so you know the drill. And doing this, where it's a technical stuff, where they're fact checking and they're doing lots of other things at the same time, I learned a lot in the process in doing this. And she wrote 3 books before this one, so she was very familiar with it. So that helped us move some things along.
Well,
but
also our deadline helped move things along.
I beat him. I beat all my deadlines.
Yep. But I learned a lot about the book process in there, and I did learn that I want to self-publish Our Broken Plate, and then we'll probably do a follow-up after this that is much more diet-centric and focused on health span.
But in the meantime, plant-based, The Idiot's Guide.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one.
And I think everybody will like it. They will like it. It supplements what you wrote in Presto. It goes beyond what you wrote in Presto, and has a lot more how-to than you had in Presto.
That's what we really need. Now I'm debating, you see, because my plan was that I was going to have just brown rice and beans for my food today, so I go to England tomorrow. But all this talk of great food, I want to have avocado in the brown rice, and have some burrito.
Have
or
a
something.
salad. Have vegetables. Have
Well, see,
greens, leafy
when I
greens.
do that stuff, I don't. You would think adding a salad in makes no difference, right? Is there any downside to adding a salad?
No, it's a good
No, it's
thing.
always
There's
good.
always a good
Well, you
thing.
said though, go back to just potatoes or something.
No, no.
so glad
I
you
said
said
it
that.
only because you want to hear that.
But a salad never does any harm.
I believe
No.
the last time I was on the podcast, I completely chastised you on the potatoes and saying it and pushing it. In the book, we very clearly, you say it's not the potato diet.
Right.
There's people calling potato hacks and all this
And
other crazy
using my
stuff.
name, which I
Using
told
your
them not
name.
to.
Yeah. So the bottom line is that potatoes are a healthy food and you can eat them. They're not evil.
I can have brown rice and beans and a salad tonight.
Please do. And here's the thing: if you like to feel full, what's going to make you full with the least amount of calories is salad and soup. And you'll eat less of the rice and potatoes or whatever, beans and whatever.
Yeah,
if you eat
because
salad.
beans are more calorie dense, and you at the end of the day, you do have to burn those extra calories off. What we liked about those things is that you also had this idea that it might be glucose, not blood pressure, glucose that was causing you to feel not so good during the show. And that was a real concern we both had. And so there's no reason for me to change that right now until you say, Ray, I'm ready to experiment with this a little bit. So that was the only reason.
Okay.
I have a fear of you just eating a bunch of lettuce, not getting that full feeling. I still believe it's the abdomen
We're
being
not going to
full.
fight about it. So we got these two battles going on forever. What caused me to be lightheaded during the show
Right.
is where you're wrong, as far as I'm concerned, the only
You're
place
wrong.
you've been wrong your whole life.
You're wrong.
And you're wrong about the sugar high.
No.
But everything else in their book is right by plant-based nutrition,
He's wrong.
the idiot's guide, because nothing's wrong except those two things that aren't in the book.
They're not in the book.
So they're really safe.
Blood
And
pressure.
that
It's
was
blood pressure.
No, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
It's Happy New Year. We're in the new year. It's rock
Happy
and roll.
healthy New Year.
Happy healthy New Year. Isn't that nice? Well, we can say Merry Christmas now too, because our president. That was Penn Sunday School.
That was Penn Sunday School.
Cha cha cha.
And to our listening
You
ears,
see, you become naked.
just sang and round us rang the music of the sea.
Easy.
Easy, big
Got a
fella.
show still.
You're right. Got a show tonight to do. Yeah, Ray Cronise. That's CrayRay. Actually on the show. Have CrayRay on the show more. We'll be done then. That was Penn Sunday School. And we have a new friend. A new
Julianna is fantastic.
friend with the last name Hefer.
You owe me a nickname. You said in the forward. You got to come up.
Oh yeah, I gotta go with something. You know we love you.
Now you call her Sugar. Hi, Sugar. 'Cause-